And we are back post gym session in the same park, ready to yap about something else. So today, the first topic that was on my mind is, of course, one that I am interested and passionate about, around how balance doesn't exist, life operates in cycles. But I'll get to that another day, because I actually wanted to address the idea of living in spite of someone. And that could mean anything. It could mean working really hard towards something in spite of what someone said to you, or acting a certain way despite someone's criticism. And I am familiar to the experience very well, actually. But my thoughts on it recently are from the point of letting go of that spite, because eventually in the healing journey, you get closure or you find a resolution, however that may be, and you realize, oh, actually I've been operating from a hurt place for a really long time. And because of that, I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to live for myself now. That is what I would want to do instead. And so lately, what that's looked like for me is, in terms of my, past self, studies that I've done in high school, college, and then my post-grad or new grad-ish experience. Being an adult is really weird. I'm 25 now, and I'm realizing there's not a lot of structure after graduation. I mean, unless you go back to school, sure, but life is what you make it. And essentially you're going to have to define what kind of structures you want to live by, whether it's a 9-to-5 kind of gig life, more of a freelance lifestyle. I mean, that all pertains to career, but I realize I'm getting off topic. I want to get back on topic. The reason why a lot of this effort towards, restructuring your life, right? You are going to be the one in charge of the rest of your life. It's not going to be anybody else. And it shouldn't depend on whether or not your mom had called you selfish when you were 3 years old. And that is the point. And so turning the concept of spite on its head into more of a allowance for yourself, or maybe even an obligation to self. And what I mean by those words is what if you were to take all of the negative experiences that you've had and turn them on their head, and just, yes, you were called these names, you were treated this way, people have incredibly hurt you. There could be a possibility that they didn't mean it like that. And it's very much of a reality that you've done the same to other people too, where you have acted from your own programming, how you know life and how you operate about life, and you have unintentionally hurt someone. And whether or not that has been made known and, reconciliation has happened, that's beside the point. But in the end, you are someone capable of hurting somebody else, whether or not you intend to. And that very well could be the reason of all your hurt, or most of it at least. And then say it was unintentional, right? But that's how you could proceed about it. But say it was intentional. Okay, so if it was intentional, then you don't mess with that person. You just don't. That's not your person to be around. That is a hater, an op. Why would you be around someone who dislikes you like that, to the point of putting you down, to mistreating you, to abusing you? At that point, especially if it gets to that point, or it's just very abundantly clear that they don't like you, you remove them. And then that's it. There shouldn't be any obligation to keep that tie. And another experience that I've had from that is, You know, you can't really convince people who dislike you to like you. You can't convince someone to love you if they don't love you. I think about like Amaya Papaya from Love Island, and it's like, if I'm not your cup of tea to be drinking, don't drink it. But it's entirely true. Like, you will find your people, and your people are probably not the people you went to high school with or you went to college with, because those were environments where you were forced to be in. College maybe not so much, but it's like you don't get to choose like who's in your like classes and, you know, who you room with. And in high school, God, the public school system, even if you went to a private school, they're all kids that are a part of your surroundings, your neighborhood. And surely you've developed relationships and connections amongst them, but that doesn't mean it's your people. It doesn't mean that, you know, in this current place and time, being however years away you are from school, that you need to still hold on so tightly, so desperately to the life you've known. Because instead, I mean, sure, good and bad experiences aside, you can very much find people that have similar interests to you, that don't put you down, that don't make you feel insecure, that even intentional or not, people that are on the same path as you currently, where it's like, okay, I am, you know, wanting to make a business, and then you find other people that are also on the same mission to making a business, and you're like, oh my God, you're sharing, you know, things about similarities, nuances about that whole process and experience, and it's something that furthers you along that journey instead of staying so stuck in the past. Right? So, going back to the spite point, whether or not people have hurt you, or people have hurt you, yes, but whether or not it was intentional or not, you know, you're still hurt in the very end. And what you can do from that place of hurt is hate them. You can be super angry and mad. And you can make it your mission to be like, actually, no, I am going to work very hard to be the exact thing that you said I couldn't be, or be the exact same thing that you say I am, doubling down on that hurt, right? That very much could be a possibility. And it is very cathartic, even. I think even necessary to be in that place, to operate from that place of spite. Because it's anger is one of the more, like, the most, like, powerful emotions, I feel like. And I laugh now because there was a time I really was not laughing. But doing things from a place of anger, like, oh, I'm gonna prove you wrong, like, it is so motivating sometimes, to the point where it's like you lose yourself, like you lose complete filter or even limitation on like what you can do. So it is incredibly motivating, and that's why, you know, I suggest it. Or it's more of like, I think the experience is worthwhile, but where I'm trying to turn the situation, the scenario, and even direct my own self is, yes, I've been hurt. Yes, I want to prove these people wrong. I even want to prove myself wrong, that I'm not what they define me as. But actually, I'm going to take that hurt and I'm going to make it a reason to further love myself. And to be honest, when it comes to like that transformational concept, or that new idea, I don't necessarily have the full like, oh, and you do this and that, and then your life is amazing. Because I think it depends on the person. Like, how do you want to operate from your hurt? Do you want to continue hurting others? Do you want to lash out? All these things, right? Or, because when you do, like, okay, operating from the place of hurt and hurting others, right? Do you want to continue hurting others? Do you want to play into that cycle of victim and villain, victim, villain, victim, villain? It never ends. Because one person can do something that's too far, and then the other person then punches back harder, and then it's just, you're killing themselves at that point. Or instead of doing that, you then take that as a reason to love yourself, to be like, you know what, from this place of hurt, I know that this future that I'm working towards is reasonable, it's realistic, it's one that I want to see one day, I want to be living one day, and I know that I deserve better, and I know that there is better for me out there. And I know I'm not just defined by this experience. Surely you're pretty young, and if you're not young, then it's like you have life ahead of you. Life, and then kind of going back to that first point I was talking about, where it's like I wanted to talk about it, but I was like, I didn't want to make the video about it. Like balance is an illusion, life exists in cycles. And I like to think of events like this where, you feel very affected and like almost stuck in, they're almost like eras where, you have your high school era, and even from high school, maybe you have like your theater kid era. And then in college, you have like your radio show era. I'm speaking from my experience. And then this era of your life where you felt very deeply hurt and sunken, it was temporary, the same way that your first job after college is temporary, and now you're on to things that you didn't even think you could do during that point of being at your first job after college. All these stages in life are temporary, and knowing that, it's like, okay, currently, at least for me, I am currently in a transitionary stage where it's like I still have attachments to that past era of mine, but I want to move into a new one. And it's like, how do you think, like, Taylor Swift went from Reputation to Lover? Like, literally. it's you take the steps necessary to have like that different outlook. You use it as fuel, as like a reason to be different, to have a different life. And so, all this to say, right? You don't necessarily have to still attach yourself to those past experiences. Let yourself feel the feelings. By all means, cry. I think that is the best. Take trips, relax, meet new people, vent. I don't know, just do all the things that are needed. At the same time, use that as momentum, that anger, that sadness, into reasons why you want to live a different life. And I think that's the thesis here. Using those past experiences of hurt as reasons why. So yeah, that's today's video. Until next time. Bye.